meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the salute to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Nancy.
Director Benson.
Here.
Director Halkett.
Here.
Director Howard.
Here.
Vice President Duarte.
Here.
President Von Peter Leopold.
Here. Any special announcements?
Nope, nothing tonight.
Public comment. This is the time of the meeting when members of the public can comment on items that are not on the agenda. Is anyone here to comment? Mostly I see our staff. Okay, number 6, reports. Reports from the general manager.
Yes, President Von Peter Leopold and members of the board, a few things date-wise for your information. First of these, I reminded you about this last week, but this has gone through a number of iterations, so I just want to remind you again. Next week, Wednesday, Mayor Tim Sobrani will be presenting a State of the City address for the City of Dublin. It will be at Shannon Community Center at an event sponsored by the Chamber. I'm sure Georgina will report on this later, but we attended Mayor Clarkson's State of the City for San Ramon last week, which I thought was a very good event. The second item is on March 5th, which is a Wednesday. Aqua will be holding their annual state legislative symposium in Sacramento. I have been going to those for a number of years as a member of the Aqua State Ledge Committee. It's actually a good event. You have an opportunity not to mingle with a lot of legislators, but some of the legislators come across the street and meet with you, and you actually have an opportunity to sit down and have lunch with a senator or an assemblyman or something as their schedules allow. So if you're interested in going, registration is open. Let Nancy or I know, and we'll get you properly registered. Before you jump on that opportunity, though, I would also note that on March 5th, in the evening, will be the meeting at which we will release and discuss the Tri-Valley Utility Coordination and Integration Study. This is a study that's been being worked on for about a year and a half, involving all of the utility providers in the valley, and laying out a series of options for delivering utilities to the community in a way different than having 6 separate agencies do it. So right now that meeting is planned to be agendized as a meeting of the External Affairs Committee, which are Directors Benson and Duarte. If any other board member wants to go there and you think you're going to at all participate in the discussion, you need to let us know, because at that point in time we will need to agendize it as a full board meeting under the Brown Act. If you choose to go there and it's agendized only as an External Affairs Committee, you're going to be limited to just sitting in the audience and listening at that time.
You can add my name to that list. I want to go.
And you want to participate?
Probably.
And participate in the discussion. You won't be at the dais, but you'll participate from the audience. So Nancy, we'll need to agendize that as a board meeting.
We were thinking about making that ad hoc.
Yeah. That's okay. If he schedules it as a board meeting,
It'll be just like the meeting we had when Secretary Laird was talking to Dublin. Everybody will be there. We'll figure out a way to unobtrusively call our board meeting to order, and then you'll be, legitimately covered under the Brown Act and can participate. If you choose. You don't have to, but you'll be covered at that point. So that's the evening of March 5th. And then a little bit further down the road on March 18th, the City of Dublin City Manager Chris Voss invited us to make a presentation on the state of the water supply and where we're heading with drought preparedness to their City Council meeting that night. So that'll be right immediately following our board meeting on the 18th of March. That's all I have for events calendar. Under correspondence, I have 2 items to note, one of which is a letter February 13th from Andy Katz, President of the East Bay Mud Board, to Georgine Von Peter Leopold. The subject is working together to encourage conservation in the community. We'll be following up with East Bay Mud staff, Greg Chan, on that and see what we can do together. Obviously, there's some messaging that needs to be consistent given how the 2 agencies' borders come together in San Ramon. Secondly, there's a letter on the dais dated February 18th from a Mr. Elliot Healy. Mr. Healy is one of our customers. Basically to DSRSD, not to any of you individually, but I thought it's it's worthy of something you should hear. Basically, Mr. Healy is asking what does the percent conservation, the 20% that we're tossing around, really mean as a goal to him and his neighbors in particular when he's using very limited amounts of water, and how to address others in the community who are similarly positioned. Of course, the answer is the 20% number is a system-wide number, not targeted to any individual, and it's really consisting of about 5% as a target system-wide indoor use and about 40% outdoor use. We're going to be, as we move in further into our drought planning, we'll be developing messages and information for the community on that, but we will respond to Mr. Healy directly. And that's all I have, other than to note on agenda management, there would be no need for the consent, for the closed session if the board takes action as recommended on consent calendar item 9A, which is consideration of a claim against the district.
So we're going to follow up with the response to Mr. Healy?
We'll find a way to do that, yes.
Okay. All right. How about committee reports? The only one here is finance. Okay, neither do I. Okay, item number 7, approval of the minutes of the meeting of February 4th. So moved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting of February 4th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimous and carried. Item 8 is the consent calendar. These items are usually not controversial and can be passed with one motion unless a member of the board asks to have it removed. Is there any item that anybody wants to discuss separately?
I move for approval of the entire calendar, 8A through 8D.
Second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent calendar as it stands, 8A through 8D, in full. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. All right, now, item 9A, accept the monthly water supply report.
Yes, President Von Heater, Leopold, members of the board, really we have 5 items queued up for you, all related to the drought and status of the water supply. I thought I would update you on the status of the water supply. Just a quick update. You saw this presentation in an earlier version 2 weeks ago. We had a few developments since then, so I'll update you on that. But really that provides a context for your consideration of the next 4 items. Declaration of a drought emergency will be the first item you look at. Then we're asking you to endorse our near-term drought response action plan. I say near-term because the really difficult decisions that you may have to make if the hydrology doesn't improve would come in the late April time frame. And then in anticipation of some of those difficult decisions on a financial side, we briefed the Finance Committee on what the drought rates moving to stage 2, for instance. We don't know where we're going to go exactly with this in April. That depends on the rest of the water year, but what that would mean for some of our key customers. And it's more of an open-ended discussion for you to ask questions, just so you understand how the drought rates would work and give us any guidance as you may see fit. And then lastly, on the water suite of items, and on the heels of Secretary John Laird's presentation in Dublin on the 30th, I think I have that date right, of January, we're asking the board to endorse the Association of California Water Agencies statewide action plan that really sets the stage for the near-term big picture improvements and actions for the state of California moving forward with that. So that's where we're going with all this. I'm going to very quickly, hopefully, get through. And it did not work. She promised me it would work, and it does not work.
Promises.
With regards. Now, wait a minute. I think the key is she didn't tell me, she didn't remind me to turn it on. She just no to turn this on. There we go.
Have to only do that for the water.
Yeah. So the status of our water supply 2 weeks down the road from the last time I briefed you on this. The precipitation story has improved very slightly, not much. I've highlighted and read some of the new information for you. February actually has been slightly above average so far. We're at now 25% average precipitation. This data is for the northern Sierra, where our water supply originates. And the water year is no longer tracking to be worse than 76, 77. And if I can point, 76, 77 is this red line here. We were tracking on this blue line that kind of stops right there, because that's where we are in the middle of the year. We were tracking below that with the rains we had a couple of weeks ago. Over the weekend, that jumped up. And now we're actually above 76, 77 in terms of rainfall. But keep in mind, that was a very warm storm. That was a Pineapple Express. So the story you're going to see on snowpack, which is what really is important, not so much rainfall. Rainfall reduces demand. Snowpack adds to the water supply. Same presentation. This highlighted blue area that you can barely see on the projector is an average year. The 76, 77 this time happens to be in black. We're tracking better than we were before, but right along 76, 77, not above it anymore. So we're at about 16% of average snowpack for the year, about 12% of our April 1st maximum. Now we're tracking about the same as 76, 77. Again, a slight impact, not quite as good as on a precipitation front. Long-term forecast by NOAA, no change really, still continued forecast for better than an even chance of below normal precipitation for the rest of the water year. Lake Oroville storage, the situation has improved a little bit. Again, the light blue you can barely see is normal storage in Oroville. That's capacity in Lake Oroville. That is 76, 77 tracking. Here is where we are right now. And you'll see a little uptick because of the rains we had in February. That's good, but we're still tracking below 76, 77 in terms of storage. And again, we're serving a lot more people out of that reservoir than the state served back then. Delivery allocations from DWR have not changed, basically still projecting 0 deliveries for the water year. So the situation remains critical. Perhaps it's marginally less so than it was 2 weeks ago. On the other hand, 2 more weeks of the water season have passed by without a superstorm to really end the drought. And the situation remains critical but not desperate at this point in time. And hopefully by the end of the year, it might change a little bit more. There's another 8 weeks to go in water in a traditional wet season. So that's where we stand, and I'm going to let staff, first Dan Gallagher will handle the declaration of the emergency and the drought response plan, and John will lead you in a discussion about what stage 2 water rates might mean for the district and our customers, and then Michelle, or perhaps we'll call on Sue to talk about the endorsing the statewide action plan. So.
All right, thank you, Bert. President Bonita Leopold and members of the board. Item 9B on the agenda tonight is the proposed declaration of a community drought emergency. This mirrors the state's declaration and also Zone 7's declaration. We wanted to point out to you in front of you on the dais, you should have a replacement resolution. There's only one tiny change in the resolution from the one that came in your agenda package, and I'll point that out in just a second, what that small change is. We did want to make sure that you were aware of what the declaration of an emergency would do, how it affects the district. Essentially, this reinforces the urgency, if you will, of the situation that we have before us and that we're trying to get planned and ready for. But the declaration would also direct staff to work on 20% system-wide conservation, or reduction, I should say, in the water use. And again, we would target that as going after a little bit of indoor use and mostly in outdoor water use. This state of emergency would remain in place until either one of several things happens. If this board rescinds the state of emergency, then of course it would go away. If Zone 7 rescinds their state of emergency, this would go away. And it would also expire at the end of this calendar year if Zone 7 doesn't rescind theirs, and if this board doesn't rescind theirs. That's the tiny change we made, was inserting the December 31st, 2014 date as the end of this state of emergency. And of course, I suppose if we get to that point and the drought still hasn't gone away, the board can consider extending it beyond that. But The declaration of an emergency also affects contracting and purchasing. It does provide for some exemptions so that you can more expediently get work done. And there are some exclusions, exceptions that are allowed under the law for contracting and purchasing. There are also a few exceptions under CEQA that allow you to get projects put in place a little bit more quickly in the event of an emergency. Staff resources, we already have a personnel rule that allows the general manager to make appointments without going through the eligibility list, which is our normal procedure. That's so we can get people on board more quickly if we need to respond. So all we're doing is asking the board to reaffirm that. That's already part of our existing personnel rules. The declaration of an emergency also includes, we're recommending an increase in the operating budget, and this is money that would allow us to buy things that we need and services that we need, and this is just to get us through the next couple of months. There may be additional authority that we ask for in April if it really stays ugly, but there are some things that we would possibly need to get, and this would give us a little extra spending ability, and we're asking for $150,000 increase in water fund expenses. Okay, and that pretty well wraps up what the declaration of the emergency would do for us.
The only thing I would add is, you mentioned this, Pleasanton has declared, Zone 7 and Pleasanton have declared their state of emergency. I understand Livermore will calendar an action next week, Tuesday, for their board meeting to take a similar action to declare state of emergency and ask for 20% system.
Okay, so we probably should take these individually. We need a motion to accept the monthly water supply report.
Oh, yeah, I kind of handle that, thank you very much. I handle that as if it were a presentation, but yeah, if you double back and do that. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the water supply report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. 9B, it asks us to accept the resolution, approve the resolution.
Well, my only question on that is 150,000 would come from the water stabilization fund, is that correct?
No, we're actually proposing to spend it out of water enterprise. I believe that's water enterprise. We think the fund can afford that level at this point in time. It's basically for some services we may need between now and April. We're looking at the possibility of some programming on our AMI system to tickle out consumption data. We may need some contractor help to hook up a few recycled water customers. We may need some temporary staff help to backfill day-to-day business while staff is chasing down some of these loose ends.
But it's coming out of water.
It's coming out of reserves.
Yeah, it's going to lower that reserve.
Yeah, and the reserve will still remain within its target operating
Okay.
level. That's why we propose not to pull it out of rate stabilization, because the water fund will still operate.
Okay.
But the blue sheet says we're increasing the operating budget.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And the code, what we're talking about is, if you see the fund, it's Fund 600, which happens to be the water enterprise. Right.
And the CEQA changes, the ability to tweak CEQA and
Do some things.
do some other things, this all flows from state law, right?
Yes, there are certain exceptions
Yeah.
provided under CEQA, and Carl may be able to expound on those better than I
We
can.
try to make up a few things, but the attorney wouldn't let us.
And would that allow us, 'cause I know one of the proposed mitigations is some temporary hookups to recycled water. I'm assuming that would help streamline that. We have to get that through a sort of sample process.
Some additional recycled water hydrants were also being discussed.
Right.
It's not a pleasant thing to make a motion on, but I do support this. Support it.
Do you make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
with the revised resolution.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Carl, who seconded it?
I'll second that.
Okay.
No one has.
Okay. Did you have any things you can relate to us as far as the CEQA laws that we'll be able to sidestep for use of words?
Yeah, there's an exception that's expressly declared in CEQA. It defines emergency. It says in an emergency you can proceed without the need to go through a further environmental review. And the definition talks about declare an imminent danger, demanding immediate action, prevent loss of or damage to essential public services. So
So
if
things
you
like-
run out of water, that's the sort of
So things like going out to bid and all of that might be.
Yeah, I mean, that would be part of it. The other part is under the public contract code, the district has certain procedures, and these were adopted in conjunction with when the CSD law was rewritten. Those were sort of updated, and it calls for contracting and purchasing in relation to public works projects. So there's a separate exception provision, or emergency provision there. And so it would be it would facilitate the use of both of those.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. Okay, now we can go to item 9C, which is to endorse the district drought response action plan.
Okay, President Von Dieter Leopold, members of the board, this item is essentially the action items that we provided 2 weeks ago for the board when we did our PowerPoint presentation. There are a couple of things I'd like to point out in the proposed action plan that we put together. We tried to add a lot of flesh to the bones on this thing. Last week the PowerPoint was pretty brief and on point, but we tried to add a little bit more detail to some of these various things. Expanded recycled water use, of course, is one of the areas that we're hoping to capitalize on quite a bit. And we have a number of customers right now that are very close to existing recycled water infrastructure. Our plan, as described at, let's see, under Category 2, under expanded recycled water use, is that customers that are close to recycled water use will essentially be converted. And if they are not converted because of one problem or another, then they would be the first candidates for shutoff in the event that we have to start water shutoffs. So this action plan would basically ask the board to agree with that as an MO from here on that we would employ for those customers. We're also proceeding with, we talked about 2 weeks ago about trying to get approval from the California Department of Public Health to have a public giveaway, or maybe I should rephrase that, a public distribution program for recycled water that customers could come and pick up recycled water at the treatment plant. I actually have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with CDPH in Richmond. We're going to talk about this. They seem to be very receptive to the idea. Of course, we've got to see what kind of details they want to throw at us to make this happen, but we're going to continue with looking toward that project. And that may be more optic than practical. I'm not sure how many people might really be able to put a tank in the back of the pickup or buckets in the trunk and come down and get buckets of water. But for those folks that are looking at their trees passing away because they don't have water to put on them, it may be a way for them to be able to try to do something about it, keep their garden watered and things like that. If it gets to that point, if it's really that bad.
If that's approved and it actually does work, people are using it, you may want to get some kind of schedule where you have some remote locations based like on a fire hydrant, right? Where Wednesdays at between 2 and 4, just have some schedule where people can get the same water, maybe a little closer to home.
Bring a 5-gallon container with you.
Right. I think there's going to be a few people that are just, confident enough and have the skills to be able to do this themselves. We think more than likely what this will result in is a little bit of a niche business. Some guy's going to have a water truck, fill the tank up with 2,000 gallons of water, hook up with a number of accounts and go around and put, a couple of gallons on the tree, on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that. We think that's probably more how it's going to
That's likely. I mean, my father drove a water truck out of World Territory until just a month ago. And yeah, there's people who will pay to have their
But right now, as a regulation stand, we cannot do that. So I give Dan a lot of credit for actually pushing on the health department to allow this, because their first reaction was, no, and I think a little bit of common sense, given the situation we may be facing if it failed.
Under enhanced customer service, there's some discussion about what our AMI system may be able to do for us. We're asking your patience with this. Some of these things may be practical, may be much more difficult to put into place, but we're going to explore things like allowing our customers to access their water meter data from a website. So if they want to see what their water usage was yesterday, last week, last month, whatever, they'll be able to pull that up. That's a way that they can get real-time feedback on the things they're going to try at home to save water, and I think that's a huge tool. But at the same time, our staff realizes there may be a lot of hoops to jump through to make that work, but we're going to proceed with trying to make those things a reality. We listed on here the affordability and enticement programs. I just wanted to point out that things like Cash for Grass and maybe some of these enhanced incentive programs for conservation appliances and fixtures and things like that. Those affordability programs we would not ask for approval on until the April meeting or May, whenever it occurs, when we really know what's going on. So we'll investigate those, we'll have them fleshed out for you, but your approval of the action plan tonight does not specifically give approval to those affordability programs. Just thought I would point that out. The other items on here we will be proceeding with, the ones that are practical and reasonable that we have listed. And I think pretty much everything you see here is what we talked about 2 weeks ago. Shouldn't be any surprises on any of these items. We're also working very closely with Zone 7. Zone 7 is trying to figure out how we're, as a valley, and the retailers and Zone 7 are going to work together to make this work with a limited water supply. It's going to take some logistic work, to actually make it happen.
I have a question. Are we going to be doing a booth at the Art and Wind Festival and also the St. Patty's Day celebration? And we could do it with Zone 7. We could do it in conjunction with, Art and Wind could be done with East Bay Med.
We're just starting to plan these events, Director Benson, but I don't see why we couldn't do those.
Because I know they're close. The dates for the Dublin St. Patty's Day is rapidly coming to a...
Okay.
If we were to pursue those would be another example of some of the costs that you had in that declaration of emergency. Because you recall when you approved our budget, we did not budget for attendance.
Exactly. And I'd be happy to be there. I think we'd all be happy to show up and help me on the booth.
Absolutely.
Dan, on the enhanced customer service, just a word of caution about, I agree with your assessment saying that getting the system to have the ability online for a customer to check, we don't want to overpromise a date.
I understand, yes.
If you set a date, make sure it's one that the staff can actually meet.
Right.
Don't set a date until we can do it.
Right. We're not going to promise that we can do
there
it.
you go.
That's one reason why we wanted to kind of coach you on this, because we've got a lot of development behind the scenes to make these things work if they're practical.
That one would be really excellent.
It would cause a lot of heartache.
To promise it and then not be able to deliver?
Yeah.
One of the things is, that system is a new system, so we're just beginning to understand the full capabilities that system can offer. So while a lot of these ideas are, staff sits around and say, this would be really neat to be able to do this in terms of customer service, we're not even sure the underlying database is, compatible with doing some of these things. So, we need some expertise on that. But
On the other
conceptually,
hand,
it should be.
this is sort of the wave of the future. I mean, you can go on and check your PG&E usage and everything else. So if it's new software, maybe it's more possible than we think.
And the point I'm trying to make is to say, and I'm sure it's possible in the long run, the point I'm trying to make is this AMI meter, this new metering reading technology, is not even fully installed right now. So, by all rights, we would normally be having this conversation about this time next year after after all the new stuff is installed, we have a chance to learn the system, then sort of explore its capabilities. But with this drop, we're kind of pushing the technology a little bit. So see if we can find a way that's a benefit.
Isn't there also a leak program coming up area-wide? Fix Your Leaks, I think it's in March, some week in March. I know East Bay Muds didn't participate in that program.
Very well could be.
I'll find out the information and share it with you, Dan.
If we get everything we want on the recycled water side of things, do we have enough water?
We have enough reason, with the agreement you approved with the city of Pleasanton in November, yes, the answer is yes, we do.
Street sweeper came by the other day, and I was thinking, is that guy using recycled water?
I don't know if he is or not, but if he has a leader on his truck, right now, he does not have a potable water meter. So
Okay, cool. It's a city need.
I talked to the mayor last night, and he mentioned that he would love to look at collaboration on these efforts. So he definitely wanted us to be involved.
I'm sure that's why Chris asked for the presentation.
We'll be meeting, by the way, with the Unified School District next week, Monday, and Tim, wearing his Dublin School District staff person hat, will be in attendance at that meeting.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
All right.
any further questions or any additional?
Good job.
I think we need a...
We should approve, yes, we should approve the plan by motion.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded that we adopt, approve, endorse the district drought response action plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. Okay, item 9D, received the fiscal analysis. Oh dear.
What a way to start. President Von Heater, Leopold, board members, what you have is a presentation in front of you, as Bert mentioned. We're not asking you to take a rate action at this point in time, just want to give you a feel for the impact this might have on customers. If you remember when we adopted the rates in 2013, we also adopted 4 conservation level stages 1 through 4 at that same time. When the rates were set, we also had some goals that we had for the new rate structure. They were to maintain the fiscal integrity of the system, to minimize the impact on the low usage customers, minimize the impact on higher usage customers who actually achieve the targeted cuts, and encourage conservation overall. We also built into those tiered rates certain budgeted money to cover the impact of additional programs that might be needed. So the presentation that you have in front of you looks at some of the impact should the drought continue through April. And we've used the 20% target that we've been talking about that Zone 7 also set to use it. Well, the beauty of having these rates set is we know what the rates will be if you go to the next stage instead of that stage 2. And that's what we're using in this example. Maybe one other point of note, the examples that you have in front of you do not assume at this point any change in the Zone 7 rates. So we have no official notice from them about any change in the rate. So these are just the impact of our changes on the customers. So if you look at the attachment you have to the staff report, and we start with attachment A, you've got some examples of residential customer use, and there's 3 different customer examples there. The first one is an average winter use of 19 CCFs per customer. The second one is an average annual use, and the third one, an average summer use. So you're going from 19 CCFs to 23 and to 30. And you can see in each of these examples the total bill, which is going to be in that normal water conditions column. So the first one is the bill would be $91.65. If the customers meet their target, in each of the cases, the total bill goes down. So even though the rates are going up, if they cut their usage, their bill will go down. I guess that's the key message in each of these at all 3 levels. You'll see a reduction. It goes down a little bit in the higher usage, which is what you would expect, because then they're using more tier 3 water, which is a little higher rate, less discount. So I guess at first, this is your average residential user. Are there any questions maybe before we go to the next set of examples?
If I could just interject, if you had a very low user, say somebody using 5 CCF, I'm just picking that number because I can do the math in my head, 20% off of 5 CCF, that person would go down to 4 CCF. The same pattern would hold at 4 CCF, that customer would receive a reduced bill. The question is whether at that low of a consumption, will that particular customer can in fact shave that much water off their user. And the answer is, I don't know. Some probably can, some probably can't. That's the driving force for us considering one of the items in Dan's action plan is what we're calling the conservation pays program. We can't change the rates without going through the whole Prop 218 process. What we can put in is a component where if you achieve some level of conservation, less than 20%, and if you're in tier 1, we could actually give you a rebate which would offset the otherwise higher costs. It's fairly nominal amounts of money in terms of the big picture financial district, but I think it would go a long way to addressing the concerns of some of our lower water using customers, retirees, people that are just don't have the financial resources that some of the higher users do. So we're looking at that to sort of offset what is probably an impossible goal to achieve, which is reducing 20% off of an already. The message to a person using 5 units is, hey, you're doing a great job already, please continue. If you can do a little bit more, we'd certainly appreciate it, but we don't want to hit them with a higher bill.
Okay, then, no questions?
No, one comment though, because I know when Georgina and I saw this a couple of weeks ago, it's counterintuitive, and I want to make sure that we understand why it's counterintuitive, and the audience does. These are total bills. These aren't just our component. And the Zone 7 water charge, which is just passed straight through, is an extremely large portion of our total bills. So, I was frankly surprised that the rate would go down, that the total bill would go down. And it's because the zone rate is static and it's a big pass through, so it kind of swamps out some of the financial signals that we're trying to send. Because frankly, people who don't hit their targets, they're going to see an increase of 7 to 10%, which is not a very strong financial signal. I kind of wish we could send a stronger one. In that vein, the zone by contract can only adjust their rates once a year. I know that the water committee was exploring the idea, and I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on it. Maybe you opening the door a little bit to say, hey, if you need to make an adjustment, we certainly would be willing to talk to you. Because what will happen if they don't, think about it, if the zone cuts their water sales by 20%, their rates stay static, their finances are going to go upside down, we'll be looking at a very large increase
Next year.
at the end of the year, and a very large increase that'll stay. It'll become the new normal. So, I think even though I never really like to go ask people to charge me more, this might be a case where having a conversation makes sense. And he's hearing, I'm seeing nodding, so I'm taking that as a probably point.
Yes, we actually haven't met since the Finance Committee met, but I'm pretty sure we can look at least on a staff level, talking to them about the realistic possibility of the fact that their rates are going to go up next year. We don't want to be hit upside the head.
The other question on your examples, your first one is 19 CCF, and that's the second. Isn't our first basic tier like 1 to 10
Yes.
CCF? Do you have an example for that?
Yeah, look at the graphic below that. This one picture is worth 1,000.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, it was a color copy, and the copy didn't come through, but I think you can get the gist of it. The 2 dark vertical lines are the break points between tiers 1 and 2, and then between tiers 2 and 3. that graph that wasn't colored, that doesn't show up very well, at least in the version I have, basically presents two lines that are very close together, showing what your bill would be with baseline and 0% consumption versus what it would be with stage 2 and 20% consumption. In every case, that stage 2, 20% consumption tracks below.
Well,
The percent
what I was wondering is, like, say you're at 9 cc, and you just can't cut any more, what would be the impact?
So we can do that for you. It would actually, it's going to go up, and that's the reason for the affordability plan.
Yeah, I like to see that
It would
number.
probably go up less than 7%, because these lines are getting closer together as you get towards zero.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And the 19 CCF example is a 7% increase.
For the Zone 7 water.
Well, no,
We have it all that information, sort of in the spirit of trying to summarize that.
Yeah.
And present it. We'll have that all that information.
Where does it pull the graph out of base?
Yeah, and this is the April timeframe, so yeah, I'd like to see what happens to
Yeah.
people at
Very
the
low.
very bottom who just can't conserve anymore.
Yeah, something
They're down to
like
just
Mr.
flushing.
Healy, who has no lawn left in front of that.
So we're cognizant of that.
Yeah.
That's the reason for developing this kind of program process.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
yeah,
great.
At that level, probably can't hit.
So we have discussion with the zone? That would that be the water committee?
Oh,
Staff.
Staff will do it.
And we've actually opened up
Yeah.
that discussion.
Okay.
All right. So attachment B that's included is some of the large users, the cities in there, and this is broken down into 3 separate sets of numbers. The first one being the potable water use, the non-irrigation use. The second set is the irrigation use that's broken out, and then that third set of numbers or blocked out area is the total of all. And what you can see, it's the same type of layout. Their normal use is the normal baseline or what they have now. If stage 2 rates go in and they reduce nothing, you can see their rates go up between, let's say, 5 and almost 9%. But if they can cut their use to 20%, then the bills go down. The only anomaly on this, or the major anomaly on this page, would be Alameda County, which has a set rate which is based on the Zone 7 rate, plus an administrative fee on top of it. So theirs looks like a large decrease because this is the only factor they have in there is the Zone 7 rate that we have right now. That's why theirs shows it goes down 19% when they cut 20% use, because it's all water based. The irrigation rates, if you look at those numbers, they're a little different, and that bill goes down, but not quite negative like the top does. And that, if you remember when we developed the irrigation rates, because that is water that we can or would want to have more impact on, those rates are set a little higher. These customers still show a net bill impact increase of between 1 and 8%. But if they can cut their consumption to about 27%, they too will see a 0 impact on their net bill. And when you get down to the bottom, you can see just total by customer what the impact will be. You can see most of them will see a total bill reduction. The city of Dublin and city of San Ramon show some increases, and that's because they have heavy irrigation, potable irrigation in their total bill. So again, this was just intended to give you an impact on the major users.
This is just Jordy Valley for the city of San Ramon, right?
That's the only question.
It's a lot of numbers, but if there's some questions.
Trying to give you a big picture of how the numbers sort of push as you make these different assumptions.
So then attachment C is an example of one specific, I guess, account within an account. It's if we convert the Dublin High School facility that's right now using potable irrigation water to recycled. They can use the same amount of water and save themselves 9% because the rate is lower. Maybe Bert can give a little background if you know what's going on.
It's ready, it's piped up to be converted to recycled water for various reasons. It hasn't been yet, but this is one of the issues that was. So we're going to pursue pretty aggressively.
There's a lot of good crisis goes west.
And we need to make sure that Mayor Sabrani has this particular piece of paper.
Yeah, we could follow up, Director Howard, on the smaller use, and if there's any other things for follow-up, staff can work on that too.
Again, the message is the rate structure is working the way the rate structure was intended to work.
And 30 CCFs is kind of an average central west Dublin suburb.
It was district-wide,
Average
average summer.
Average use.
It's average.
It's an average of an average, isn't it? You know, if you're going to model, it'd be nice to, you know, if you're, and don't go crazy, but if you're going to chuck some models into the hopper, the real water hog might be good to see too, just because of the show.
That's why we have the graph on the bottom. We can extend that graph up. The graph.
Or just make the graph, yes, we can see it.
Yeah, the graph tells the picture.
The take-home message though is that it sure would be nice, and I know we can't do it given our rate structure, back to the zone and swamp systems. It'd be nice if on that graph was one for the part.
Oh,
Yeah. But we just can't send a price signal that is probably adequate, but do the best we can.
all right.
Good news tonight?
So no action on that. Appreciate your comments and your questions. It'll help us get ready for April if we need to go there.
And I assume in April, if we have to go there, we'll also discuss what this means to the revenue side of this equation.
Well, actually, we can talk about that a little bit. The rates are set, and we checked into this. If you go to stage 2 and everybody achieves the 20% conservation, actually it generates about $200,000 of additional revenue. Basically, because the third-tier customers and the irrigation customers need to, as John pointed out, need to get to 27% to break even. So if they get to 20%, we generate about $200,000 worth of revenue, which interestingly enough just about covers the increased costs that we asked you to authorize. Now, we're a little disjointed in time, we know that, but we're not ready to ask you for the rates yet. We have reserves to be able to handle that 150, I think, so I'm comfortable with that recommendation.
Okay.
To pay for it.
All right. Let's move on to item E, endorse Association of California Water Agencies statewide water action plan. Who has this? Bert, is this yours?
It's pretty straightforward.
Oh. Look out.
Here I am. We're a member of Aqua. Aqua developed this plan. The governor has a plan. They're very parallel. We heard from John Laird about the governor's plan and Aqua's plan. Tonight, the request is that you endorse Aqua's plan, the Association of California Water Agencies. In your packet, there's the analysis of the differences and the similarities, and they're very, very similar. Metaphorically, I would say maybe Aqua's has a little bit more teeth than the state's plan, but they're very, very similar. So this helps Aqua when they go meet with the governor to, the governor listens a lot and has changed their plan, after listening to Aqua, so it's all a good thing. There are 86 agencies so far who've endorsed it, so that's the request this evening. Any questions?
So this all started with a meeting at East Baymon's offices just before Thanksgiving. A couple of 3 board members heard, which led to the scheduling of the workshop with Secretary Laird. We wanted to have that so that he could hear about this before you consider this action. So this is just a natural progression of events.
Okay. Any questions for staff? I think we're sort of at the end of where we intended to be.
Yeah, I think, Aqua's on the right, going in the right direction. I have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, we speak with 86 other water agencies. I don't know, they're being listened.
Yeah, I think with Aqua's getting more clout, and I think the governor will listen. And so, yeah, I would endorse.
Okay. Want to put that in the form of a motion?
I move that we endorse the plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution which endorses Aqua's statewide water action plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Sue. 9F. This is the second reading of the ordinance of the Dublin San Ramon Services District repealing and replacing Chapter 6.1, Section 6.10.010 of its district ordinance code to update the definition, purpose, administration, and positions covered by the personnel merit system. I would first like to entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded that we waive the reading of the ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay. So we are ready to hear from Michelle.
Thank you, President Bonnier, Leopold, and members of the board. We are presenting a request for adoption of an ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 6.10 Personnel Merit System of the District Code in order to make some small updates to the language to include the reference to the senior managers as not part of the classified service. The changes are very small, but necessary at this time to make the organizational changes that we've been making recently due to our senior management staff.
Does anybody have any questions for Michelle?
Pretty comfortable. I got the feeling that it all comply with law.
Well, it was perhaps a little bit more than that. It's perhaps to comply with the personal services agreement you signed with them and approved with senior managers. Really, there was sort of a question under the existing code whether senior managers were at-will employees, at-will of the board, whether they were covered by, civil service kind of, we don't have a civil service program, but civil service kind of protections. This code revision makes the senior manager's tenure clearly at will and pleasure of the board. And that's the purpose of this, and by the way, we cleaned up the other language changes that we're going to be having as well.
What's the will?
Move the ordinance as revised.
For a second?
A second.
So moved and seconded to adopt the ordinance with the revisions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. Okay, board member items. Rick?
Down in Truckee, the snow over the weekend, and it's going to be difficult to find any good plan. It looked like it's actually stunning. If you've ever been to the mountains this winter, take a trip up. It's stunning.
Because there's no snow.
I mean, it looked like late April, and it's February.
Now, we've been seeing pictures on the news of, places that should have snow all over the snowbanks, and it doesn't.
It certainly, it was a well-timed trip, and I did find some snow for the kids, by the way. But it sure, kind of drove home some of the actions we're having to get tonight, because it is grim up there.
Well, when you go
see, somebody told me to go see Don Pedro and the other one that East Bay Mud has out there. But yeah,
Comanche. Comanche and Hardy.
yeah, how low they are. Oroville scares me, so does Shasta, and those aren't even, well, Oroville's ours, but
Yeah.
anyway.
First of all, I want to thank Nancy and her staff for a great job on the employee recognition event. That was very nice. And also, I was down in Fresno this weekend, so Obama happened to meet with a bunch of farmers down, farmers and Westlands, the Westlands GM, the senators were there and the local Congress folks. But he had they had farmers, it was a great opportunity for him to get a real good flavor and him to look also at a parched land down there and just what's going on. So if anybody wants a copy of the information, I brought copies of the article. It was a rude awakening as well as we went down there. Pretty dry. All the canals are very slow. It's very, very, kind of brings it all home too.
I've been looking and watching a lot of the local farmers with their water situation and the animals and the hay and the horse issues around here. So yeah, it's pretty scary.
Well, a friend of ours was from Oregon, and he was saying, "Oh no, don't come after our hay," because hay prices are starting to go up.
Yeah.
So it is. Other states are now feeling our pain.
Pat?
Well, let's see, first of all, I'd like to thank Nancy and her staff also. That was a great get-together for the employees recognition event, which I happened to talk to 4 different people who had kind of the same notion, and that was, we don't invite retirees to these because we can't afford it. I mean, the retiree list is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and someday it'll be hundreds. But the one notion was, can we bring back retirees once? Just once, the first year after they retire. And so, just so people can see what's going on. How is the retirement? What's going on? What's new in your life? And so I'd just like to ask the External Affairs Committee just to think about that. Maybe it's a crazy idea. I don't know how many retirees we get a year. 5, maybe 3, I don't know. But something to think about. Yeah.
Well, I too would like to echo the same congratulations to Nancy and all of the staff. That was an outstanding party, very, very well done. Bert did an excellent job of emceeing, and I felt that the employees truly appreciated everything that was, the awards that were handed out and the recognition that was given us. That was a very good party. My second comment is on the ongoing with the drought issues. As of the last board meeting, when we received the presentations from Dan and from Amparo from Zone 7, I approached the 2 Rotary clubs in San Ramon that, well, I won't say carry a lot of weight, but they have a lot of movers and shakers in the club. And both of them have agreed that they would like to hear the presentation. I've told both clubs that to get the full flavor, we need to have both speakers at the same time, and we're going to expand the normal speaking time from 20 minutes to 35 minutes so that do it justice. But those types of organizations are the ones that we need to get the message out. And the history of the drought and how we have arrived to the position that we are in now is a real good story to tell, and it makes a good impact. So when you can give me a date that you can make, we'll make it fit.
Yeah, I think late this afternoon I sent you an email back, and I can do the March 6th date. I know Amparo hasn't responded yet, so I don't know whether she's available, and it sounds like you'd like to have both of us there. And so, hopefully she can make it work out. If not, we'll have
And if not, there's other dates that we can
Okay.
Which of the 2 Rotaries?
One is my club, the Thursday noon club, and That's in San Ramon. The other club is the Doherty Valley Club, which is important because
Yes.
that's in our...
The one that's in San Ramon, it might be a good idea to invite John Coleman to also, so they could get input from East Bay Mud.
And Frank, or Frank.
Or Frank, yes,
Right,
or
Frank.
Frank Mellon.
Because Frank was at the event.
That's true.
Yeah, so Frank had really good, and I know he's really willing to do so.
But the Doherty Valley people, you know, obviously hear from us, but
I spoke at their,
San Ramon.
I spoke at their Rotary Club last year on water, so I think that would be a great time.
And, you know, we've got a Rotary Club here, we've got a Lions Club.
Just let us know where you need us to go. We're here for you.
Yeah,
Miss
we're all
Sue.
definitely willing to do it.
Yeah, just,
Yeah, I would strongly recommend that you speak to the Dublin Club. Now, they're not in our Rotary district, the one that I'm in, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's somebody around them.
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know who's president right now, but the Lions Club is Bill Burnham until maybe June, so. But we can get you contact. That's the easy part. So, yeah, like Don said, we're willing and able. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I too would like to thank the staff for the work they did for the event that technically we host, but don't do any work for. But I do think everybody enjoyed it. It was great to have spouses there. We haven't seen the spouses in a long time, or the significant others, whichever. And I have to admit, I want to thank whoever put together the list I was supposed to read of the accomplishments. And I did not read my email that day, so I didn't see the prepared statement that had all of the list of accomplishments that we did. And I want to thank you because it truly put in perspective the things that our staff, our whole staff does. And so I want to thank you all again. Second thing is I attended, along with Bert, the State of the City of San Ramon last week. And, you know, they're doing the same kinds of things that we're doing, although, you know, and he did mention it, that he's cut things that his neighbors didn't approve of. And he stands by it. He said those are the things he had to do to get the budget back in the black. And he'll continue until the budget's set in the black. But other than that, he had some, you know, nice words to say about their growth in downtown and, you know, their size, the population growth. He had a lot of statistics, which I unfortunately left at home tonight, but they were great comparisons of numbers. So San Ramon's doing okay. That's the bottom line, which you would expect the mayor to pass along. So, I don't know, do you get any other things out of the luncheon?
I always enjoy listening to Bill speak, and, you know, for me, the value of a lot of those events is to go and mingle with folks, you know, so I was able to talk to a lot of people that I've known for
Never
a lot of
remember.
years, and, yeah, I always enjoy those meetings. They're a lot of fun to go to.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time too, so it was nice. Okay, we do not have to have our closed session because we passed item 9A, and so...
I've got one more question. Okay. I have an open ticket for next week's luncheon, so if anybody wants to go, I will be out of town. That's for the
Dublin.
Stay with us.
So if anybody wants to take mine, feel free to appropriate it. Also, I'll be in Washington next week. Is there anything you guys want me to take as from the board? I'm going to ask them. Any message?
Ask the president to,
Give us more federal water.
give us.
Federal water, okay.
We want Colorado River water. We want
There is a petition pending before the state board to coordinate the place of use. Now, they're focusing on specific things, but part of what they're talking about is possibly running some water through the South Bay Aqueduct to switch how Santa Clara gets their water, because they take it normally from, they have a contract with the feds, they get it from San Luis out that way, and they get water here. So they're talking about, but they're focusing on November when they're talking about taking the aqueduct out for maintenance. But there are things going on that front that I just wanted to let you know in relation to that. That doesn't have anything to do with what you're going to tell the president.
I just wanted to find out if there was anything special you guys wanted me to Redor and
Are you
Marigold.
going to see Eric, do you know?
Yeah, I saw Eric last night, so we're already planning to meet with him and setting up meetings.
Yeah, you have, from what I understand, you have a very full agenda between Aqua and CASA and BAB2B.
And personal friends.
Friends.
That's late, yeah, that's before I go to the conference.
Okay, no
All right.
further business then. Meeting's adjourned. Say hello to Bo. Oh, yes, the dog. The dog. Yes, the dog. Oh, I think I was gonna try and go if you should be around. Try and go next year because, you know,